Hi, in this section we're going to go over just section 5, financing conditions and obligations. This will have 2 sections on getting a new loan and 2 sections on taking over a loan from the seller. So in the first one, this is the most common thing you'll see or do. If a buyer is required to pay all the purchase price by obtaining one or more new loans, buyer has to put the application for the loan in by the new loan application deadline. Straightforward right there. Next, if the buyer is going to buy a new loan, this contract can be broken if in this buyer's sole discretion the loan is not satisfactory. This condition is for the sole benefit of the buyer. So the buyer gets to determine if they like everything about it. The buyer does not have the right to terminate if the objection is based on the appraised value or lender requirements. So you've got to base it just on the payments, the interest rate, the length of time, whatever you don't like about it will qualify you, but you can't do it just because the appraised value doesn't come up to what it needs to be. If the seller is not in default and doesn't receive this by written notice to terminate, the buyer's earnest money will not be refunded. So if you're a buyer and you decide the loan isn't going to work for you, put it in writing and get it to the seller before the termination deadline. Otherwise, you won't get your money back, your earnest money. So these next 2 sections are if you're taking over a loan from the seller. If the seller is going to let you, and the lender will let you take over the loan as well. So this is, in this case, contingent upon the seller approving the buyer's financial ability. So the seller gets to see the buyer's credentials, credit report, make sure that they feel comfortable taking over this loan. If the loan is going to be not released, in other words, if it's going to be seller financing or they're taking over another loan, the seller has to deliver copies of the loan documents to the buyer by the existing loan deadline. This will give the buyer plenty of chance to look at the exact document that they are taking over when they're taking over this loan, so they'll know exactly what they're getting into. If the lender's approval is required, as it probably will be, then the buyer has to get approval without changing any of the terms of the loan. So the buyer has to get approved basically by the lender, just like the original borrower did, who is now the seller. So if you're a borrower and or the buyer and taking over an existing loan, the lender will likely want to qualify you as well. And that has to be done by the loan transfer approval deadline, or else the contract will terminate. So that's it for this section. We'll move on to the appraisal next.